Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 33 already. Happy Saturday night. Woo!
Yep, I'm sure everyone else is partying like we are
Yes.
sitting in their dining room
Big, yeah,
without an adult beverage in sight.
that'll be later. Uh,
Maybe.
but we're happy the election's over. Phew. Glad that's been settled.
Until all the lawsuits come.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. They've already been filed. It'll whatever happens will
Whatever
happen.
happens, happens. So that's all you can do. We just thought we'd talk about something that it could be unusual. You can let us know and let us know your history about this. But a fun fact about us is we live in the same town pretty much that we grew up in. We
Yeah.
have never moved away. We have moved away. You went to college, obviously. You went to law school.
You also went to college.
I also went to college. And in my early 20s, I had an apartment in the city of Chicago. So it's not like I have never or neither one of us have ever left the actual nest. But I think it is kind of unusual that we still live here, especially like you have a lot of siblings. My siblings were the only ones left.
Yeah. They were all smart enough to get out.
Yeah, exactly. We're just the ones that are stuck. No, I'm just kidding. But it is kind of an unusual thing, I think, that well, I think originally, like, I think it might be an reason why we have stayed generally in the same area is like our parents did. Like
That's
my
true.
parents came from Virginia in 1962, and the first house that we had, we lived for 24 years. So the same house that David's family moved just a few blocks from where we live now,
Right.
lived there for decades and decades. So I think that also has something to do with it.
Well, that and the fact that by the time we were looking for our first house, my dad had already passed away. My mother was getting up there and, frankly, didn't necessarily want to move too far away because someone was going to have to help out with things and all that. But then, it's funny. We did that. So we bought our first house wasn't really that far from my mom's at all. But then, like, she didn't really call on us for a whole lot, a lot of things. She
But
took
we were
care of
here-
our
yes.
oldest when our oldest was an infant,
Right.
right after she was born. But somehow in my mind, I imagined there would be a lot more, running over there to deal with things,
Open a bottle of ketchup.
open a bottle of ketchup. But she was still very independent. And so that didn't really happen. But that was at least the rationale for our first house.
And I kind of think that once our kids started the school district, that it kind of
Right.
became more of like a keeping things,
Exactly.
the same kind of thing, and not having them move different towns, starting new schools, finding new friends, all
Right.
that stuff. So we kind of wanted to take maybe that kind of anxiety out
And
of
then
their
we were
childhood for 25 years.
for 25 years.
But it is, I mean, the middle school that our kids went to was the elementary school when David went there.
Right.
And so
Although they'd actually built a different building. So
That's
the,
true.
the new building was kind of in front of where the old building was. They actually built it on what had been the playground for the school that I went to. But I went to kindergarten at that school.
And that was kindergarten through eighth grade. When
That
we went
was,
there.
yeah, and it was the last, when I graduated from eighth grade, that was the last year, was kindergarten through eighth grade. Then they divided the schools up into middle schools, and they called it junior high school then. But
Yeah,
now
we
they
called
call
it-
it middle school. But in any event, yeah, but that we were the last group to graduate in eighth grade. I had a circuitous route though, because we went there for kindergarten, and then I went to parochial school for first and second grade, because the parochial school didn't have a kindergarten then. And then through some mysterious process, we ended up back in the public schools for the rest of the time. My parents had some falling out or something with the with the parish. I don't know.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, we weren't privy to that. We weren't privy to that.
But then it was also like kind of nice just to be familiar with the area, of course, since we've been here for so long. David and I went to the same high school. Our paths
true.
did not cross paths there, but then all three of our kids went to the same high school too. So that's also a legacy, I think, because all of David's siblings went to the same high school. My siblings did, cousins,
I have cousins, right.
nieces, nephews. So we kind of thought, I think we traced it back. Claire graduated in 2018.
No,
No,
Claire graduated in 2020.
2020. Yeah, duh.
Just
She just
graduated.
graduated. I'm like making her older than she is.
So,
2020. So for like 40 some years.
well, no.
Longer.
For about 58 years, from
Yeah.
1962 through 2020. Now, it wasn't
Not at the
constant.
same. Yeah.
Wasn't every single year, but from 1962 to 2020, there were long stretches of time where there was some member of my
the-
family or your family
Right.
there. So my oldest sibling started in 1962, and our youngest graduated 2020.
So that is also kind of I think a kind of cool thing to have that kind of consistency. And obviously going to the same high school and then your kids go, it is definitely weird walking the halls. And I still got lost going back. It's a gigantic school.
Yeah, that's because the numbering doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because they had an old building and then they built onto it. And
then the
they
inner
didn't just have
numbers
the numbers go consistently from the old part to the new part and around the hallway like you would normally do. So no one knows where they're going.
And the high school we went to was large, very large. So my graduating class was like 995 people, and my class year was probably similar. So it
A
was
little smaller. It was
a ni-
889.
It's a nice way. It was nice not to go to a school that's so tiny that everyone knew everybody kind of thing. But also, I think it prepared me from going to college. I went to Iowa State my freshman year. You went to U of I. Of going to a bigger school and not feeling intimidated by the size of it, just because we had already experienced kind of like the mayhem of thousands of kids in your school and trying to get through the classes and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. But we were just curious, like, do you still live in the same town or near the same town that you grew up in? Or B, would you ever go back?
And how much has it changed?
And how much has it changed?
Because our town, it's really kind of strange. I mean, it always had sort of there was kind of the more blue collar part of town where I grew up, although my parents were teachers, but I mean, it was the neighborhood was a blue collar neighborhood. And of course, teachers, didn't make any money, so we fit right in the blue collar neighborhood. And then, but there was a much wealthier part of town. Supposedly, I don't know if this is true or not. I've never been able to verify this. But when we were kids, Ernest Hemingway was from our hometowns,
Yes.
and everyone always said that Ernest Hemingway allegedly referred to our town as a place of broad lawns and narrow minds. But the broad lawn part, he was referring to the north end of town, where they have very, very big houses. Not my neighborhood. I don't know so much about the narrow minds, but my neighborhood was not particularly broad lawns. But it was a working class neighborhood, and now, I mean, there were some big houses because in those days, I mean, people had big families.
Yeah.
I had 10 siblings. And
didn't you say like at one time on your block there was like 100 kids on your block?
it wasn't actually our block, although there were other big families on our block. But a colleague of mine who was not from our town, she was from a different suburb, after she had graduated law school, and she and her husband moved into our town, and she was told on their block there were 11 houses on the block, and there had been 99 like school-age kids at one point.
That's crazy.
So the families on her block averaged 9 kids apiece. That wasn't the case when she moved in. That had
Right.
been years ago. One
But
of the
still.
neighbors who grew up there told her that. Yeah, but I mean, it was a big, my part of town was, it was a big Catholic parish. There were a lot of Irish Catholic families. My mother, as I refer to it, my sainted Irish mother,
Yes.
was not the only one who had a lot of kids. So we would occasionally find out that there was a family that had more kids, and I didn't.
And you're like, what?
Yeah, I didn't like that. I was actually kind of miffed when I found.
Yeah,
out
like how
somebody-
could you have more than 11?
But our block, we were the biggest family in our immediate block. But there were other, I mean, it wasn't unusual for there to be 5 kids in a family or something like that. So
Yeah, and I also think the reason why it's convenient where we live is the proximity to Chicago. Downtown
we're
Chicago is
due west of the
we're 9 miles from downtown Chicago. So just jumping on a train in less than a half hour, you're in downtown. or even driving. So this is a fun story because I've been driving our son to college. He just goes to one class in person a week. But because nobody's in working, like not many people are working downtown or anything, literally and his class is on Wabash in the Loop. And from our house, I've gotten there in 12 minutes and dropped him off door to door. So that's kind of weird to have less traffic because sometimes, obviously, with a lot of traffic, it could be 40 minutes. You just never know.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of crazy. But the interesting thing about our town is that the property values really went through the roof. Probably, I mean, really even going back to the late '80s,
Definitely.
really took off in the '90s and the early 2000s. So it's a little bit strange, from when I was a kid to where we are now. It's a lot less affordable, than it
Definitely.
used to be, and unfortunately, that means a couple of things. It means that, as you might expect, property taxes have gone through the roof. Not only is it expensive to buy a house, but of course, just your regular monthly payment is that much more because you're paying a big mortgage and a lot of property taxes. So there's that. So I mean, it's kind of become, you went through a period of time where it became, pretty well integrated, and it was really kind of neat. It's a very diverse town, but it's, you may not be able to maintain that over time if it continues to be difficult for people to afford.
And now what they're doing is any open land or anything, they're building
Yeah.
high rises here, which is also weird for
Yeah, it's
us
very
to
strange
have
to have,
a 10-story,
10-story
a
buildings.
12-story
Right.
building with luxury apartments that are tiny and expensive, trying to lure 20 somethings.
Yeah, they're definitely trying, and I mean, look, whatever works in terms of attracting people to the community, that's great. But unfortunately,
Make it affordable.
well, right, and I think if you have a lot of people who are very young and they come and they have a nice apartment, most of the places that are going up are rental, not
Right.
condominiums. So people are attracted to the location because it's convenient. I just don't think a lot of those folks are going to stay. You know, so there's nothing wrong with people renting, obviously. I mean, that's fine. But I don't envision people coming and renting these places and then turning around and buying a house. Maybe that's the idea, because
they
they're
get there and
attracted
they
to the
like them.
town, and then
Yeah.
if they can afford, to buy a house, then they buy a house. But we'll see what happens. I mean, that could be, that process could be, it could be, decades before anyone could really tell whether that worked out.
And I briefly sold real estate in this town when I was 21. I really liked real estate, which is maybe like why I like House Hunters so much. Or just if I see an open house sign, I just stop and would go into just a random open house just to see, because I'm nosy like that. But I specifically remember the very first house that I was able to list was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, 2-car garage, and it was $83,000,
Yeah.
and that was in, I believe, 1989. So to me, that seemed like a lot of money because I was 21. Like, wow, this is expensive. But then also, it was difficult to have a career in real estate in a town, A, where realtors are competitive, which I didn't know. 2, none of my friends could afford to live here, so I didn't have any like customer base or anything like that. 3, I really looked young, so people didn't trust me. So that was, but I loved being able to just show people around, and just like they do on House Hunters, like, what are you interested? What are you looking for? And being able to. However, I didn't have all of the bells and whistles what they now have now, which is the internet, and being
That's
able to.
true.
I actually would write in a newspaper a little ad to about
Yeah.
the open house, like, what am I going to say about this so I can put it in the paper, making sure you didn't miss a deadline so you could get in the open house, like, so crazy.
You couldn't show pictures of
No
everything
pictures,
and all
yeah,
that.
no 3D videos, all that stuff, that it's so fun right now. So yeah, that part was difficult, but I just think, I don't know, for me, I always like the familiarity of being around, and obviously having our kids have their friends and everything like that. However, now that our youngest is done with high school, we might be able to spread our wings a little bit more
Yeah.
and maybe go to the next town.
Yeah, move one town
Yeah,
over.
One block over.
There are more bars than the next
Yeah.
the next town, so there's that. Our town used to be dry, actually.
That's true.
That changed a long time ago.
Yeah.
It changed in the 1970s, I think. But in any event, the result of that was that the town immediately to the west of us became where the center for all the bars and nightlife, and it still is kind of.
It is.
So yeah, maybe we'll move in. We'll move into one of those tiny little apartments above
Above a bar.
above the bars.
Yeah.
You know,
Maybe the one
or
that
the
we
floors
met.
will vibrate.
That'd be amazing.
That would be fantastic.
Nah.
Spend our golden years
Yes.
above a bar.
I do think it would be nice one day to like live somewhere where it's like the houses are a little bit more spread out. Like where we live, obviously,
yeah, we're right on top of
there's
everybody.
no. I mean, all the houses there's hardly any houses that have any like width to it, kind of thing. So having some kind of I
Let's
don't
go
need
up
like
to
10 acres.
go up north where all the rich people live.
Yeah, where there's like 4 houses on a block.
Yeah.
That's true. There is a couple of streets on East Avenue that have like 4 houses on a block.
But not where we live.
Not where we live. It's very close quarters. So yeah, you are very close.
Which means that whenever, because everybody's into flipping houses these days, whenever someone comes in and buys one of these places and tries to renovate it, it's like they're right on top of you
Yeah.
when they're doing all this.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've lived through a couple renovations. A house across the street, a person passed away, and then somebody bought it and made a whole second left
Yeah, it was
story.
really a one-story
It was a
house.
one-story, so that was a whole year project or more.
I think the windows in the front of our house are still dirty from that, from all the debris
So
and
it's like,
dust.
oh,
and
it's 6
everything
o'clock
like
in the morning. Let's start hearing construction noises. And then across the alley, I've mentioned this on my personal page, but where a parking lot was, they were building a 4-story, like 40 apartment complex. So that's
Yeah.
been going on since the beginning of quarantine, probably even
Yeah,
before
they started right as soon as we were locked down. The construction project started down the alley. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's a monstrosity. It's so big.
And they have like these small crews of workers. I can't figure out how
There's
they,
like 5 people building it.
how do they build a building with such a small group of people?
Yeah.
And that may be partly why it's taken so long.
Maybe so. That hopefully is going to be wrapped
But,
up in the
yeah.
springtime.
We're fortunate that we don't really ever have to drive anywhere unless we're going to the grocery store because our alley is always, blocked up with construction.
Construction and trucks just
So we're
in
just
general.
complaining about everything.
Yeah. But we just thought it would be a fun topic just to like get your idea of like how do you think that's weird that we've lived here so long?
Are we sad? Are we pathetic?
We have traveled, so it's not like we haven't gone anywhere. So there's that kind of thing. So, but you never know what the future is going to hold. But maybe we'll move near our daughter at college.
Yeah, they're looking at houses, she and her friends, and we told her, oh well, if there's an extra bedroom, we'll just
move right in.
move right in. No.
No, I think that would be a bad idea. So until next time, we just wanted to wish you a happy Saturday night, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.